Hi, everybody. Welcome to Life from the Backseat. It's your girl, Simone. Before we get into today's episode, I want to make a few quick announcements. For one, if you haven't done so already, go check out livefromthebackseat.com. Right here, livefromthebackseat.com. Okay. Go check it out. On there, there's a blog that I update weekly every Monday with new blog posts, ranging a variety of topics. You can find wonderful merch on there. You can find all the podcast episodes and just lots of good tidbits that if you love this podcast, you'll love the website. So go check it out. Also, if you haven't done so already, please go subscribe to our Patreon account. And as always, comment, rate, subscribe. And thank you for joining me into the backseat. Let's get into today's episode. Everybody, welcome to Live from the Backseat. I'm so glad to have R today. She's awesome. So R is like a super mom to Boz. Yes, Boz.
Okay.
So cute. And a super auntie to Ryder. And just you're like a jack of all trades, which I love. So yeah. Well,
so Boz is now 19 months, about to be 20 months, which is really weird. Almost 2 years in with this whole mommy thing. Ryder is 3 and is a grown adult, which is really crazy. I love watching the two of them, and I'm so happy that during this whole pandemic, during COVID-19, that my sister and I live together. And so our kids have like had each other through this whole coronavirus, which is really important.
Nice.
Because Ryder is old enough to like, she's in programs and like in school, and she's like, where are my friends? You know? So
no, my son is 3 and he's the same way. He's literally like at the window, like, Mommy, I want to play with kids outside.
There's people.
He's like, I would like to see my friends.
Yeah,
when is school back?
Boz. So the other day I went to the grocery store and Boz was with me, and it's the first time he's been to the grocery store since like March. And he had his little face covering on, was so cute, and he just waved to everyone. Like literally every single person we walked by, he was just like, and I was like, oh, the kids are hurting. The kids are hurting. So mom life has just been on steroids, just because of everything. So we've had to be very creative.
Yeah.
Very, very creative.
So one, I love how you and your sister, that's really, like, I didn't know that, but that's actually really a cool setup for you guys to live together, to be able to have the kids together and like to be able to raise your kids together. That's a blessing. That's so nice.
It's a blessing, but at the same time, it's like we're two awesome people and we're both like single and mothers. We're unmarried mothers, so it's just like weird.
Fellas, guys, just in case you want to, you know, if you're ready to step up and be a stepdad of the year, okay?
No, we don't need. Let's just work on courting for now. That's all.
Right.
Start there.
The last episode, like
start there.
We get courted.
Hey, and the other thing is, I went to an all-girls school, so like in terms of just like, my mom is super mom. I come from a huge family of like women. I went to this all-girls school. I have the first boy in like 5 generations.
Wow.
Which is really crazy. So it's like everything is new for me in terms of boy life, but being a mom is like, I think it's really easy. Just because I'm like, I have a helicopter mom. Yeah. But I love our setup. I love the fact that we get to raise our children together right now. It's really, really, I want more children now.
Yeah. Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
I'm like, after quarantine, I'm like, I don't know. I think this is enough. I'm just like,
I like you, you like me, like we're okay.
We might be okay with this. Yeah, no. It's definitely been tough. It's had its like little blessings in it. I will say there's been some quarantine blessings. Like I've been a lot more present as a mom. That's one thing I will say. I've been a much more present mother because I'm like, I can fight this, but that's going to cause a panic attack. So you know what? You got it. like you got it. You have my full attention. You need it all.
Want me to come on?
Yeah.
Let's go.
It's like, I love how you said Ryder's like 3 going on 30, because it's literally how my son is. He's 3, but he's like, Mommy, what's this? And how come this? And you need to come here. And I need you to do. I'm just like, why are you a miniature adult? I'm like, can you simmer down just a little? Just a little. So.
Some of these one-liners I've been receiving lately, I'm like, the camera needs to be rolling 24 hours just to catch the things that Ryder says. Like the other day, my cousin was at the house. Cheyenne was working. I was working. And Mackenzie was playing with Ryder for like 5 hours. And then they came to our house. So they were playing at my mom's house. They came to our house. And she was thinking, oh, Ryder's going to chill out. So Mackenzie sits down and Ryder comes up and she goes, you're supposed to be playing with me. Like, let's go play. Yeah. And then Mackenzie was like, can we take a break? Ryder walked over to my mom or her mom and was like, she's not playing with me. Like, go get her. Go get her. Like, how they are. Like, I know she's here to play with me and she's not playing with me. Like, make something happen. And it's just like too smart. Does your son is he vocal? Like, does he speak?
Way too much. Yes.
Okay. Does he ever talk about like coronavirus?
So I never explained to him what the fuck was happening. And coronavirus, he thinks it's a Cardi B song. So if you say it around him, he'll be like, coronavirus. He thinks it's that internet remix. So like, he doesn't know what the coronavirus is. Dang. The way I explained it was basically just like, we all have to be in the house together now. Like me, all you, your uncles, we all working I was like, everybody staying home now. I was just like, school is closed.
It's a party.
He was like, why am I not at school? Why are my uncles not at school? Why are we all in the house all day with you? I was just like the way I explained it,
why are we here?
Yeah, he was very confused at first. He was like, what the heck's going on? And the way I explained it was basically just like, everything's closed. And so, yeah, and like, he just thinks coronavirus is a Cardi B song, and that's his jam, and that's all he knows. So if you say coronavirus in front of him, he will break out into song and be like, coronavirus.
I love it. No, Ryder's like, if you go outside, she's like, where's my mask? I need my mask. Because if we go outside, you can get sick, and we don't want the coronavirus. And I'm like,
I love that. Yeah, no, he doesn't. I was like, yeah, we just have to wear masks now because it's the law. And he's like, okay.
Like, crazy. And at the same time, it's like, what is going on? Oh, the washing of the hands, I absolutely love. It's helped with counting.
Oh, yeah.
It's great. It annoys me sometimes.
Kids are gross anyways. So it's like,
thank you.
I'm all for you guys washing your hands more. Yes.
Yes, but it was driving me wild because we had the step stool in one of the bathrooms. And it's like the kids go ham over the step stool. And when Boz realized he could climb up the step stool on his own and turn on the water and get the soap,
new levels of independence.
I was like, yes, son, but at the same time, why? Why now?
At the same time, your bathroom will be flooded at some point.
Flooded, water everywhere. And I'm like, how did the water get over?
Yeah.
It's fun.
I have a question. Have you guys been shooting during quarantine, or like how does that work? Because I know your sister does Teen Mom still. Do they come in the house to shoot with y'all, or like? And how do the kids adjust to that? That's kind of just out of curiosity.
So pre-COVID, the kids were fine, just because that's just what they know. Ryder was really young, and of course, it's like, hey, be careful. Be gentle towards the equipment, or let's not push all the buttons. But at the same time, when the crew was in the house pre-corona. They're very warm and endearing. Like, they work well with our family, so it's been a very smooth transition for the children. And Ryder knows them. She's like, hey, what? She's not even fazed by the cameras, and it's all Boz knows. So that was fine. We did, beginning of Corona, we did have to do some self shooting. So they basically sent a bunch of equipment and GoPros and camera stands, and we did have to shoot a few things ourselves, which wasn't bad, and it actually gave me more confidence to be like, hey, I can start a YouTube, or if I wanted to start a YouTube, now I know, I at least know how to like point and shoot myself,
right.
Now we haven't been shooting the last couple months, but Cheyenne does a lot of shooting for like YouTube, so we've been like doing a lot of like self-production at home, which has been like a family affair, whether it's like setting up lights or editing. Like, one of my other sisters, she edits all the videos right now. We're trading off kids. We're running after kids as we're like filming. So Cheyenne has definitely been shooting a lot. I've been doing my best to like create content and shoot content because I really want to do a blog. I've just been, I don't know what I'm procrastinating over.
I remember you talking about that like a few months ago.
Yeah. Right now I need help finding a web editor. So if anyone is a web editor, graphic designer, hit me up.
Slide in her DMs.
At R KyleLynn. Yeah. So once I get like blocking with that kind of person, I'll be shooting more content myself. Because it's fun, it's easy, and yeah. But we will be self shooting in the future. Like I think my sister's still trying to figure out everything in terms of shooting with MTV for Team Mom OG, but it's gonna be some self shooting, or it's like weird situations where like they can't come in the house. You know, so
that's what I was wondering. I was like, what do they do when they like literally can't? Because you can't be in the house.
Yeah, even before it's like they would use our restroom. Now it's like you can't use our restroom, which is hard for us because it's like we feel
you want to be a good host. Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah.
I know you, and you know our family, and like you're, you know, like I get what you're saying, but it's like that's a safety hazard.
But it's still like, hey, you know. So there's like little things like that. So. I don't know. Check back on that in a couple months and have a better answer for that. Still figuring it out.
Yeah, that was just out of curiosity because I was like, I wonder how that works in this time period because everybody does. I mean, like every industry is having to completely change in like, some form how they do business, how they operate because the show has to go on. Mm-hmm. You know, it's like we just, it still gotta work. You know, I had to figure out how to do Zoom when Corona hit. I was like, well. Mm-hmm. Now's the time. So
I have a lot of friends who are like in production or on different TV shows, and some of the shows like I can't say what they are, but they're filming, you know. Yeah. So it's like they're having everyone like quarantine. They're doing it so like everyone gets checked. They get the COVID-19 testing like weekly. Some of the people they get them tested like bi-weekly. Quarantining them in houses, like they're doing different things. So people and shows are still in production right now.
That's good because also people do need shows now. Everybody's at home, so it's necessary. Mm-hmm. I wanted to touch on your kind of like I don't know if I call it like your life motto or whatever, but like release, replenish, respect. I wanted to kind of touch on that and just kind of like know like where does that come from? I like it. So I was like, where does it come from? And like kind of just can you break it down to like what it means?
Yes. So like 5 years ago, I had this like mental like breakdown kind of.
Where did Beth epiphanies come from? Literally.
Like I can just be open and honest about it now, but I literally just had like a breakdown. I think I was just doing too much and putting way too much pressure on myself. And I just kind of had a mental break. And in that mental break, it sounds weird when I talk about it now, but it's like, in retrospect, I lost some of my abilities, like to do some certain things, like on the computer. Like I used to build websites very easily, but now it's just like, there's some kind of disconnect. So it's like I was experiencing the disconnect in different facets of my life. So I created a self-journaling system, which was like, it was called Reminders. And it was a simple reminder of who you are. And during this time, my mom just kept saying like, you know, like you can do this. Like, remember you did this. Hey, do you remember how you did that? So she was literally reminding me of like things that I had accomplished or little feats that I had, you know, just things that I had done in my life.
Yeah.
And so within that, I started writing more. I went back into therapy, just so I could like get my brain right and like get back on track. So while I was doing that, I really got into like finding ways so that I could sustain my sense of self just in life. So things that I do to like keep myself healthy, I release my emotions. And after I release my emotions, whether it is like from my heart, like a thought, it could be a rant, it can be, you know, learning how to be accountable for something and like actually releasing that, like those words. And then after I release, I learned that I have to replenish myself, because usually after you release a lot of things, you're depleted, you're drained, you're tired, like you're exhausted in so many different ways. So I was like, I need to replenish my spirit. So I started to like really get into like self-care and just like the values of like self-love and learning how to readdress myself and relearning myself. And then from there, I was like, okay, cool. Now I just got to respect the process. So it's like, I really do my best to like release, replenish, and respect. And that respect is like mental mastery. So it's like, now that I know, like if I'm releasing something and I'm like, why do I feel this way? Why am I feeling tired? Or why do I feel lethargic? Or why is my body tired? It's like, because you're not taking care of yourself, you know? So it's like, I have to replenish myself. So yeah, I really do try and stick by that: release, replenish, respect in all facets of my life. And it kind of keeps me, not like boundaries, but it's like boundaries almost.
Yeah. It keeps you like mentally, yeah. It keeps your perspective focused on where you want to focus it. I guess that makes sense. Rather than, I noticed that because when I was telling you, I was reading all your posts about Westridge, your old school that you went to, during the height of the Black Lives Matter, you know, when everything kind of popped off and, you know, like emotions are high, intentions are high, and people, and everybody was trying to jump in the bad way. All the white people were like, we down with the cause. It's like, are you really?
Everybody was like chickens without a head. Everyone was just like, ah.
Yeah, it was a lot. But I was really following kind of what you were going through with that exchange with your old school. So I did want to touch on that, but I noticed how you, in your final kind of statement to them, how you had the release, replenish. So I was like, oh, I like how she threw that in there. I was literally like, oh, I like that. I saw the way put a little marketing in there. We just throw my little.
No, literally, it's transpired in so many facets of my life. I'm like, oh, I could literally build a whole business behind release, replenish, respect, and it's self-care, self-love, and self-preservation. And it's like, so anytime that I can interject it, I'm like, there's a little self plug.
Little harmless plug here, you know? Yeah. Get with it. No, I loved it. I did want to talk about the Westridge stuff because I was following that. It was real interesting. I'm like, wow, it was super interesting.
Like, what is this?
Also because, you know, just in, and also I think it's timely that we're kind of talking about this now because there's that whole free grace movement going on. With the young Black girl that is currently incarcerated in juvenile justice system because she violated probation by not turning in some homework. And as we all know, well, I'm not gonna say we all know, but we should all know that there's a school to prison pipeline that affects Black kids. And there's adultification of Black girls that is really a problem in schools. And, you know, something as a mother that I'm sure you can resonate this with is like, you want to make sure you're making good choices for your child's education. Like but as a Black mom, it's also so important to like who's educating your kid really matters, right? And so it's like, sometimes it's like, damn, what do you do? Because like there's the public school prison to pipeline system, and then there's private school, which is great, but it has its complete own other cultural.
There's psychological trauma. It's abuse.
Right. Psychological and cultural issues. And so, you know, when I saw what you were when I saw you speaking out about that, it really caught my attention because I was like, to me, it just kind of resonated, just spoke to that like tension that Black people kind of go through with their kids of, do I send my kid to this school that's going to, you know, give them all these opportunities and connections and network, et cetera, but might actually inflict psychological fucking trauma on my Black child? Or do I send my kid to this public school that like maybe the psychological trauma on my Black child might not be as manicured, so to speak? Like it'll still be there, but just in a different way. But then like there's also this possibility that my kid gets boxed into this bullshit box and like goes, you know, and gets led astray. So I did just kind of want to touch on that and really just know like what was your experience at Westridge and like what motivated you to speak out about it, because and you did get a lot of like support back. Like it's not like you were alone.
No, for the first time in my experience of being part of the Westridge community, that was the first time I felt seen, heard, and I did not feel alone in what I had to say. And there's so many times where I know I was seen, because you can't miss me in an all white environment.
Right.
But I wasn't seen for like just for myself, you know? So a little background. When I was like in the third grade, I'm assuming, my mom says I got tested, and I tested very high, like 98 percentile. So they're like, oh, your kid is, they'll be like, oh, you can go to the gifted school, or blah, 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 blah.
Right.
So with that, my parents, even before that, my parents always had this idea of providing my sister and I, or of them providing their children with better opportunities, like just very much, each generation we have to do better. So it was a family decision to send me to Westridge. I got in on my own merit.
Were you the only one from your family to attend, or did your sisters attend there as well?
My sister went to a different school. So Cheyenne's 3 years younger than me, and we have different learning styles. So we just, that's another thing. You have to know who your kid is. You have to take time with your kid, learn your kid's learning style. Not every school is going to be fit for your kid. And your kid is not going to be fit for every school. And it doesn't say anything about you or the school. Right. So when my parents sent me there, great education, exposure to this, like top technology at the school. Like even now, like they have like an all green, like science building. There's like a 3D printer at the school. Like there's full computer labs. There's a huge soccer field, like softball field. There's a dance studio. There's a gym there. There's a ceramic studio. You've got your music room. There's a full theater. There's a black box theater. There's like, it's literally like sometimes when I describe Westridge, people are like, why? Or when I speak so passionately about it, they're like, why do you still care about this place? And I'm like, I don't think you understand like what I experienced as a child. Right. And that's because a lot of people haven't, like I was excited to go to school. I was happy to be there because it was safe. We had catered lunches. We had we wore uniforms every day. So it wasn't like anyone was like, oh, what's wrong with your clothes? Like there's a lot of things that I hear people struggle with in school that I didn't have to struggle with, or that I don't know about. Like I've never been in a fight. I've never had to fear for my life in like a physical sense. Whereas like my mom, she was a cute girl. Guys liked her. Girls were jealous.
Girls want to fight you. Yes.
My mom, people want to fight you. So she was like, I don't want my children to go through that. So there's a reason why I was in an all girl school. It wasn't like, oh, let me put her in this white environment, but it was upper education.
That just happened to be.
That just happens to be how it is.
Which is a good point you make, because a lot of the time, that's the thing. Black parents are really just looking to give their kid the best opportunities. It's just that, something I think about so often is like we don't have, there isn't like an HBCU style private elementary school for Black kids. You know what I mean? Like there isn't, like the best opportunities generally mean you're also kind of hoisting your kid into this really white space and white environment. So it's just a very interesting.
We're still fighting for our freedom on basic levels. Yeah. So it's like, for me to even be able to attend this private white institution, like the head of the school used to tell my mom, like, it's a privilege to be here. Don't complain about the lack of diversity. Don't complain about XYZ. Just remember, it's a privilege to be here.
Right. Which is, right.
It's like, okay.
Okay.
Cool. Anyways, no. The thing about
Pasadena.
I hear you, but nah. Also, the thing about Pasadena, there's like, when I was living there as a child, I want to say there was like 80 private schools in the city. So it was literally, Pasadena was very much like old money, like generational wealth, like elitism, like when all that like white flight happened, they were like, we're getting out of here. We're going to build our own little cocoon, microcosmic world. And they did just that, so it's, the disparity between the public and private schools out there is insane. So I am very happy that my parents did invest in my education and send me there, but just as a Black figure, it was really difficult. So the school was 4th through 12th grade, all girls. I was part of the first 4th grade class to expand in size. And when I say expand in size, normally there's 4th grade class, there's 20 students in a class. I had the first class where there was 40 students. So of those 40 students, I was the only student that had a Black mother and a Black father. I have another classmate who is biracial. She has a Black mother and a white father. However, we had very different experiences. Our families, everyone's family is different. You're taught different things in the home. You were exposed to different conversations within your home.
Mixed kids are it's a whole different ball game. It's a whole different complex, different identity issues. It's that's I come from a family that has a lot of interracial, but like I'm also very privy to like mixed kids can go either way.
It can go either way.
And they have a very unique experience with racial identity, generally speaking, because not to like overly get into it, but like the idea of otherness creates this otherness, but you're still going to be identified as Black to the rest of the world. It creates a very interesting dichotomy and a very interesting perspective that is not, while it's part of the Black experience, because biracial people are still Black and they still are part of the Black experience, and their experiences as Black people are still very valid. It's not an experience.
I can't speak on it.
It's not an experience completely matching with many other Black experiences that are not from a biracial standpoint. So I get it.
You're Black, but you're in there won't always be other.
Right, I get it. So that doesn't mean for you that was going to necessarily automatically be like a comrade or somebody who could understand you, because you're like, well, I'm Blackity Black, and she's like, I was special.
Very pro-Black, and
I get it.
And it was just, there were a lot of differences. So, but we were in school together for 9 years, so it was that even made it more difficult, because people would be like, well, she could be your friend.
Well, she's not a Black girl. Y'all can be cool, and it's like, but we're not.
But we didn't really have classes together.
Yeah.
Like we had dance together. But I don't really remember having like academic classes with her. And that's the other thing on campus. The only time I ever had a Black teacher was my dance teacher. There were no Black teachers in core subjects. There was no Black teachers like in the administrative office. Like the therapist that they had on site was literally like the whitest white, passive, just delicate, fragile, like white woman. And they used to send me to her, and I'd be like, I'm not talking to Judy McLeese. Like, Judy McLeese is telling me to calm down when I've just been verbally and like mentally and emotionally and like spiritually assaulted. And she's telling me I'm the one in the office and everyone else is still doing their thing. Like, this is not my person to speak with. So in terms of having an adult there, like in my corner, it was my parents. Like my mom and my dad, they stayed very close. My mom stayed very close because she knew it was difficult for me. And we are a very pro-Black family. And the other thing is like, now that I'm older and I've traveled and I've had more conversations with people, I am a privileged Black person. And that's just what my life has been. So it was hard for me there because it wasn't like I was never the poor Black girl. I didn't really understand the differences between me and my classmates for a long time, because in my mind, it wasn't like my parents were able to provide and do, like, I've never been hungry. Like I remember one time this girl got a Palm Pilot and it just caught a wave, and we were maybe in like the 5th grade. And we all had these, now that I look back, I'm like, we all had these Palm Pilots, like, what do we need a Palm Pilot in the 5th grade for?
Right.
Like, I had 3 of them. I had 3.
Right. Yeah.
I had 3 of them, so it was never like, I never felt like I was lacking in terms of material items or just I guess material items. I was never lacking spiritually. Like my parents really fed me and built me up in like I would say a beautiful way. I've traveled my entire life. I've been going to plays and operas and concerts and just experienced life in so many different capacities. So when I was there at Westridge, I knew I was different because I was the Black girl. And by middle school, they had dismissed the other Black girl's Blackness. And I was just the TBG. I was the token Black girl. So then I was tokenized for like a long time. So it's like, and I was, it was like when I think back on it, I'm like, this shit is really wild.
It's very interesting that you say that because like I can kind of relate to that experience a little bit because I also come from like a very middle class family. Like I also was very privileged in very many ways as a child and as a Black child, and I got to do a lot of things as a kid that a lot of other Black kids, Black people in general, don't get to do in their lifetimes. But it's
and a lot of white people will never get to do
it. And a lot of white people.
You're right. People period
people
won't get
period.
To do it.
Thank you. That's a good point. People period. But it's so interesting because even having that privilege as a Black person or just as a person in general, like economics does not it does not fully insulate you from racism and from white supremacy.
It doesn't.
And it's very interesting to kind of come to terms with that, like understand. Like I remember in second grade being told by a white girl, well, it's okay that we play with you because your grandma's white. And I was like, my mom is African and shit. What the fuck is this about? There are 3 other parts here. Like I remember being in second grade and being like, hold the fuck up, that doesn't sound right. I just knew. I was like, that sounds like
it's so
I'm not sure how to put it, but I know that's an aggression. And I remember that being a very like that and one other experience in second grade being where a white girl told me and my friend that we were, and I still remember her name to this day, but I'm not gonna say it. But I remember she said,
I've been dropping names lately because I'm not there anymore, and I don't have to shy away from my voice anymore that they try to kill. So
yeah, but I literally remember she was like, "Oh, I can't play with you guys because my mom said Black kids are dirty and they have lice," and my best friend was like, "Girl, that's not true. Lice can't even get through our hair." She was like, "Lice can't even get through our hair. What are you talking about?"
What are you talking about?
But I remember those instances so well though, because they were instances really early in my childhood where I realized like it doesn't matter if my family's better than these raggedy ass white kids' families because
it's
deeper than that. Like they still have this idea of white supremacy that even though my entire family is shitting on theirs, like they still think they're better than me just based off the fact that like they're white. And
or it's like what you have is a lie.
And adults or that what you have is a lie, and also that like white adults respond to these white kids differently than they respond to me.
Because I also remember being the problem too.
Yeah,
they were such a problem.
Black girls like would always like I remember looking back at my childhood, like how was I always in that like what is it like peer mediator shit? And it's like I actually wasn't that problematic. I just actually said shit back to these white girls, and I'm the one who always ended up in peer mediation, but the white girls never ended up in peer mediation. Like
we were being reprimanded for releasing.
Yeah. And so I think it's very interesting that you make that point.
And chastised.
Yeah.
When we were doing nothing wrong. So the other day yesterday I was writing and I was like at Westridge, like Westridge forced me to have to learn how to emote and express myself in a controlled manner where even if I was excited and happy, it was too much. And if I was sad or enraged with like this anger, it's like I couldn't express that. I couldn't.
Angry Black woman, right?
I could. So it's like sometimes I meet people and they're like, "You're really robotic," and I'm like, "Oh God, here this goes." And I'm like, I think it's been part of how I was groomed within this environment and how I adapted, you know. there are times where I was always a very lively kid. You know, Ryder isn't Ryder because she just came out of nowhere. You know,
Right.
Ryder is Ryder because of her lineage as well. So it's
Right.
like, yeah, I was a mini Ryder. So imagine a mini Ryder, and then all these people are just like, well, you can't do this, or I'm going to limit you here. You can only do this because of that. And it's like,
Right.
that does have, it's all like, I experience a lot of wear and tear, you know?
Yeah. Because it's like they're grooming you to be to fit into the idea that
Into
whiteness
these
has set
molds.
for, and because there's an idea of what's like prestigious, but we have to look at the fact that that's based off of white culture. So
Yes.
it's for Black children to an extent. It's like we have to be very careful. Like, it's great to groom people to be able to thrive in affluent settings, but also that culture, we also need to respect the culture of
Yeah.
who the person is, and not have these biases, because Black kids do get that a lot, even in
Yes.
prestigious affluent settings, when their parents can afford to them to go to the private school or the special summer camp or the program or whatever. They still do get the, you know, oh, well, you can't be too loud because then you're the loud Black girl, and you can't be too expressive because then you're the ghetto Black girl, even though your family home costs double what the fuck their parents' family
Or
home
it was
costs.
even like, you can't,
Like,
how dare you know what you want in your life?
yeah, you can't demand anything because now you're a
How,
brat. Now you're this. Yeah,
who told you could ask for this?
right.
Who gave you the idea that you're actually allowed to do this or have this?
Right.
Like, why are you so free? And I've found like people like this as in my life, they always been your very free spirit. You have a very free spirit. And I'm like, that's because I'm a free person, first of all.
Right.
Uh, and at the same time, they're like, how so? So like part of me is like, I grew up in this privileged environment. I was able to experience my own privilege while I was there. But at the same time, yeah, I was kept in a little box, you know?
Yeah.
So it's that box has been a lot of places though.
Yeah.
Like I've really pushed that box, I feel. And me being in that environment, I learned a lot. You know, I learned how privilege works. I learned how privilege protects itself. I learned about white supremacy real early. Like I I learned about it
Yeah.
very quickly in terms of there are some things you can do and some things you can't do. But at the same time, I was raised like these girls and taught like these girls. So very much in like, there was a case a while ago, some years ago, and they coined the term affluenza. And when they were
Mhm.
like, when the boy was like, I don't remember what the case was, but it was basically like he was too rich and privileged to even understand like what he was doing was wrong. That shit
Yeah.
is real.
It is. Oh yeah, it is. It is, because it's so, when
but
people live
it
in
doesn't apply
bubbles.
to us. Oh,
Yeah.
it's real.
And
Like,
that's a very important point to make. You're right, because even
which is
Black people who
scary.
get to experience affluence and who get to experience um luxury, like, white privilege is the privilege to be ignorant. It's the privilege to not fucking know. It's the privilege to not pay attention to it. It's the privilege to be colorblind. The privilege to say, well, I didn't even know that was microaggression. I didn't even know that was race. It's the privilege to let it all go over your head. Black people, no matter how much money they have, or no matter what privilege setting they're in, or no matter how affluent they are, they don't have white privilege. So we always have to know when shit's fucked up. You know what I mean? We always
So
know
it
when it's
was
fucked up. We always
weird.
know when it's coming at us. We always catch the microaggressions. Like, it's it's very. I love how you make that, because it's so true. I think I stress that point because I think a lot of people believe that money and affluence somehow can protect Black people from these things,
You
and
think it does, and then
I'm
you
like,
find out
no,
it doesn't. And then you're
it doesn't.
25 having a mental breakdown because you're like, wait, what? I knew all this stuff, but like, wait, what? Like,
Like, how is this
it's
happening?
heartbreaking, you know?
Yeah,
It's like, you know, I feel like part of me, I was sent to this school to learn. I wasn't sent to assimilate, you know? I was sent to learn so
oh,
that
I
I
like
could
that.
push it even more, you know? Like we're still pioneers. Like my parents, it was courageous of them to send me there, in my
Yeah,
opinion, you know? Um, there's times when my mom and we talk about it and she's like, did I make the right decision? Like I think there's a certain weight that my mom carries because it has had an effect on me, you
yeah,
know? Um, so it's I have to reassure her at times like, no, there's a bigger picture, you know?
yeah.
We
What made
you
you
did this
tougher
for a
also?
reason.
Yeah,
do I feel like a sacrificial lamb? I feel more so like an experiment. Like,
yeah.
I feel like I was definitely a case study. And now that they've built this monster of a case study, and I'm like, I've been loaded with their resources and their tools and their knowledge. And I've seen the inner workings that goes on in some of these offices that most Black people have not been privy to. Now I'm like, sometimes I feel like I'm a spy. And when I say that, it's not like in a joking way, but it's like, if the right person got to me, it's like, no.
You know, because you know the shit the white people don't want us to know. You're like, I know how the white people move. Like you're a double agent. You're a double agent now. I like that. That's really what it is. No, but I completely get what you're saying, because that's definitely like true, and that experience even resonates with me. Yeah,
I have information, and I know how certain things are done or how they should be done. You know, lately we've been from my mental. I call it like a mental. I had like a little mental break recently. My parents, my mom. After I released that, my whole house, my mom, my dad, my parents are divorced, by the way. So my whole blended family came over.
Oh, I love
it was my mom and her husband. My dad came over. My aunt came over. My cousins came over, and this was all through like in Corona. And they were like, "Look, everyone's been quarantining. We don't care what's going on. We just want to surround you and love you." And that's when I'm like, I love my family most, because they've always stood behind me. They've always supported me. They've always they see me, they hear me. That's all I need. And in that moment, they were so worried about me. And for the first time, I was like, I feel good when it comes to
girl,
Westridge.
I don't flex these muscles. You're like, I feel like I feel her. Now I got a little bit of power.
I was like, whoa, I just released like 50 tons of just bullshit, toxic, just contaminated shit that's just been ruminating in my body. I felt so good.
What was the school's kind of reaction? I mean, I read kind of what they wrote back to you, but you were really calling them to action, and it kind of seemed at first that they were kind of just like, okay, we hear you, please shut up. And then you were kind of like, no, action. So I kind of want to know, like, what was there? What did they end up doing? What was the call to action that you gave them, and kind of how did they respond to you afterwards?
There have been first of all, I think their responses have just been really sucky, half-assed, the same kind of mumbo jumbo. Let's give you this empty
pacified
word. Yeah. Let's just address it so maybe you'll shut up and go away, because there's so many people who will shut up and go away. I'll be quiet for a minute, but that's just, I want to see what moves you're making. So I know what is my next move. And that's what's going on right now for me personally. But from that moment, I received 100 emails. I gained 3,000 or 4,000 Instagram followers in that 24 hours. Just because people are like, yo, this is wild. We want to know. And this is really true. So I had a lot of other Black, Indigenous, I wish I could say Indigenous, but there aren't many Indigenous families at Westridge, but Black and other people of color reached out to me and voicing the same sentiments. They were telling me their stories. It was really overwhelming. It was a lot. And then I had to and amidst all of this, my family's still there, telling me, don't get on your phone. They're trying to get me away from everything, take a mental health break. And I'm like, no, y'all, I've been waiting for this moment. Let me have my moment.
Do it. Right,
I'm in the bathroom, hold on. I'm still using the bathroom, sneaking around, trying to find out, oh, I need to go to the grocery store. And it's like, no, you don't. Sit down and give me your phone. So they were genuinely really, really worried about me. I had to do a therapy. I had an in-home therapy session, over the phone therapy session.
Girl, I'm the quickest to be like, I'm calling my therapist. I'm the first to be like, oh, some shit went down. I'm calling my therapist. I'm texting her right now. I'm scheduling an appointment. She's gonna call me tomorrow.
In that moment, they really pulled it together. The school, on the other hand, they should have responded in a quicker manner. It took them 2 days to get to it. Mm-hmm. And when they did get to it, it was still very womp womp.
Yeah.
Don't feel anything. It's not compelled, you know?
Yeah. No, I saw their response.
It was really, really lame. And I had a lot of non-Black Indigenous people of color reach out to me as well, who were like, look, this is white supremacy. I know I'm white. I know I have privilege. How can I help you? Like, there were some people that were just like straight out, just like, just calling it for what it is. And what questions these are my questions for the school. Do you have any other questions that you would like to be addressed as well? Like, and they were like, hey, I know they'll listen to me more than they'll listen to you, which is really sad.
Which is
but at
beautiful.
the same time, I was very happy that there were a few. And the first girl who really did it, she's someone who's like been, I remember something happened a couple years ago and she called it out for what it was. So I was like, cool, I like you. She's also a little bit more exposed. Like, she lived in Kenya for a while. Like, their family are newlyweds. So it's just like, there are good people there. I don't want people to think like I'm bashing all the families there. Like, there are some shitty families there. I have no problem saying that. But there was also a lot of really good people who sent their children there as well, because they're like, hey, I know my kid can be a philanthropist in life and, cause change, or it's the networking there too.
And there's a lot of white families that, participate and benefit off of white supremacy, but they're not necessarily bad people. Because I think that's also part of it with white privilege, that like a lot of white people just don't fucking know because they're privileged enough not to know. But like, if they if they were made privy to it, maybe they'd be better. You know what I mean? They'd be better.
Yes. And that's how I think a lot of people are taking that note now too, because before it's like, well, George Floyd, that caused a huge shift culturally. I think for the first time, a Black man was humanized while he was being murdered, like a live execution. When he called out for mama. So it's like, I had peers and classmates who are now mothers reach out to me who are like, hey, you know what? I apologize for whatever I've done, or there is no apology, but it's in every case is different. But there are people like, hey, I have children now. I'm donating here. I'm buying these books. I'm teaching myself this. I want to be able to raise an anti-racist child. What can I do? Right. So this is now where I'm like, okay, you know what? Being that one person, being that token, honestly, it's time to cash in.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's been tokenized. Okay. It's time to cash in. And when I say it's time to cash in, it's like, there's been a lot of attention that's been brought to me personally, just because I'm like, as my mom says, I kick the door in.
You do.
Part of my lecture for my parents is my dad was like, we sent you to the school so that you could articulate yourself and, talk to them. I'm tired of talking to them. We've been talking to them. Sometimes he says I picked up a brick and threw it through the door. My mom is like, no, you kicked the door in. But now that the door has been kicked in, there's been some Zoom calls that the school has hosted with Black alumni, which I think have been very interesting, because they've had no agenda and they've just been listening sessions. So it's a bunch of pacifying bullshit still. And most of the Black alumni from the school want nothing to do with the school.
Yeah. What do you think? What do you think schools like Westridge and these really prestigious private institutions, because I know there's a lot, over there where you're at in California, there's a lot here in the DC area too, where I'm at, and they all seem to have the same problem. They need us to speak up. They need us to speak up.
They need us to.
What can they do? Is on an institutional level, like that? Do you think that they can do that? They can change to like just be better.
This is where it gets nitty gritty. So we've been working on this. We've been having I've been having so many off the table conversations. Last night we had a conversation with a consultant that the school is working with, the diversity, whatever. First of all, what can they do? They can treat us seriously for one fact. They have not been treating us as a serious person. I don't even know how to say it.
Just as take, like being invalidating to the experience of the Black alumni and students. Right.
They acknowledge no fault. So it's like, right now, accountability is huge, first of all. Like, just, I got asked certain questions in history classes. Like when we were talking about slavery, like the teacher would ask me questions as if I was there. You know,
Right.
she would ask me questions as if I was on that field or in that house. You know, so at this point, just it's. I don't need you to speak like you were a slave owner and apologize that way, but it's take some accountability for like the history that you benefit from, or like the
And it
history,
played a
like
part into.
acknowledge it. So it's
Yeah.
like the school can't even say, hey, you know, Westridge is actually built because of this private elitism culture, blah 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 blah. And there's so many things that they could do. They're gonna have to change things internally, with the teachers, with the faculty, with the training that they have. They're gonna have to change the curriculum. They're gonna have to change the structure of the school. So like while my school had a very non-effective white therapist, they need to have a black therapist on site. But then again, when I say they need a black therapist, I now have a lot of classmates and peers from the Asian community who are like, hey, we also face a lot of bullshit. Like, how can we back you while we fight our own fight? You know, so it's like there's the conversation of, hey, we need an Asian, you know, therapist on campus too. So the school system has to definitely be restructured. And I'm so happy that these private white institutions are being blown out the water right now, because the defunding of education has affected everyone. And they only want to act like it affects poor people and like black and brown people, but it's like no. It has everyone jacked up. Like, and it doesn't matter if you're rich, poor, brown, yellow, white. Like everyone is gotten the short stick, because you know, like I have people who are incredible. I know people who are incredibly smart, have all the resources in the world, yet they are so disconnected with people and what's actually going on. And like they want to help and they're trying to help, but they're just so misdirected. Like they're just misguided and misdirected. And then they have all these self issues and this guilt comes out because it's like, oh my God, why didn't I know that white supremacy is real?